Great. Welcome once again. This is Elena Lopez of Refugee Services of Texas. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today, Elena.
Thank you so
Good. How
much
are
for
you?
having me. I'm so happy to be here. It's nice to meet y'all. Let me just share my screen and let me make it look nice. Let's see, we'll do start from the beginning. Okay, so thumbs up, you can see it? Cool, okay. So my name is Elena, like James said, and I work for Refugee Services of Texas. Um, can I just get a quick hand if you recognize the name Refugee Services of Texas? Is that something? Okay, cool. Okay, so some familiarity, that's awesome. Great, so yeah, we've been around for a couple years, about 40 of them. But yeah, so who is RST, right? What we do is a lot of different things. We wear a lot of different hats when it comes to our services, but our mission with everything that we do is that we are guided by the principles of human compassion and dignity. And we welcome refugees, immigrants, and other displaced peoples and support them in integrating and thriving in their new communities. In this case, that would be in Austin, Texas. So we were founded back in 1978. So we've been around for about 43 years this year. And we're dedicated to providing assistance to refugees and really all displaced peoples in Texas, because anyone who's fleeing persecution based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or any kind of affiliation with a social group, we can help them and we can support them in their process of transition, which is one of the most difficult times of someone's life. I don't know if anyone's ever had to make a really big move or international move or kind of not what you were expecting, but it can be really, really difficult. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the resettlement process. Now I know that this is a really slimmed down version of it. So I'll go through it, but just know that I'm definitely gonna miss a lot of the story of peoples because they're just so different. And there are so many displaced peoples in the world that it's hard to include every single story and every single aspect. But more or less, it begins with a family or an individual fleeing a country of origin, so fleeing a neighboring country based on any of those persecutions that I mentioned before, and they make their way to a neighboring safe country or refugee camp. This happens all over the world. I know a lot of you have probably seen what's going on in the Mediterranean, what's going on in Syria, in East Africa, in Central South America. But there's a lot of danger for people right now and they have to find a new way out. So they'll leave either on foot or by boat and make their way to a camp. And that can take a couple weeks, a couple days, a couple months walking typically. So once they arrive at the camp, they apply for refugee status and then UNHCR determines the best solution for the family. And then they submit referrals or other eligible resettlement options. So what happens then is they wait for their application to be processed and the referrals to be submitted. And this part, that's a really long time. The average wait time is anywhere from 10 to 26 years. And I see some of you are shaking your heads, and I agree. It's really despicable that people have to wait so long. And it's really unfortunate that the system does make people wait for so long, especially in temporary conditions. But unfortunately, this is what we have for right now, so we have to work with it. But I do see a future, and I hope for a future where this is not the common experience that you have to wait this long. In that process, refugees will undergo different interviews and more interviews and more interviews, and that really kind of will demonstrate that the applicant qualifies as a refugee. So they're telling their story to different people, they're sharing their experiences with different people, and they're doing background checks kind of to verify the story and their experiences. Because a lot of the time people do come to the camps with a bag on their back, if that. So it's really hard to prove, some of the stories, but we do our best to understand where people are coming from. And then once we get those verified and they get approved, they go through medical examinations, they make sure that they're healthy and vaccinated, and that's when they get approved for resettlement. And then in country, they receive cultural trainings and language-based trainings on the resettlement location. Now that's to say it's very general. So if you are resettled to Canada, you will get a general 6-week course, I think, on Canada. So you'll learn a little bit about the language, a little about the culture, a little bit about the history. Now, 6 weeks is not enough time to really learn all about a country because you might not be getting resettled in Quebec, you might get resettled somewhere else, or maybe it's LA, maybe it's New York, maybe it's Austin, Texas. So it's the most general information that we can provide, or that they can provide for the refugees, just to prepare them a little bit. And that's where we kind of play our role, is once they arrive in the US. But before I get to this, I forgot to mention, there are 3 kind of durable solutions that the UNHCR has identified as the best routes for dealing with displaced peoples. And I believe it is about 85% of refugees are resettled locally. And that means that they're resettled in the country that they've sought refuge. So those who flee from El Salvador to Mexico are maybe resettled in Mexico, somewhere else, Mexico City, DFA, somewhere in there. Or another option is that only about 1% get repatriated back to their home country, which is also really unlikely, typically because they're leaving for a reason. And then less than 7.7% get resettled, but that is the population that we serve, because we can't do as much as we'd like to, but we are hoping that one day we'll be able to support more people. I don't want to forget that detail, that's important. So the countries of origin that you see from refugees admitted into the US, as you can see, this is from 2018, so it's a little old, but this data really still is about true, which is why we haven't switched it yet. So you see the Republic of the Congo, Burma, Ukraine, Bhutan, Eritrea, Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. And you see numbers like this, 7,000, 3,000, 2,000, and that's all of the US being resettled. So this isn't just Texas. But when you look at the states that do the resettlement, you can see that Texas is the top state for resettlement. And I believe like last year, Refugee Services of Texas resettled the most refugees in the country, followed by similar states. I think it was California last year. That was the second place. But RST definitely bears the weight. We have 6 different locations. We're in Austin, Houston, Amarillo, RGV, Dallas, and Fort Worth. And by doing that and by having that far reach, we're able to support our clients in a lot more kind of holistic ways and having those resources for them in kind of hard to reach places like RGV and Amarillo specifically. So that's where we've been able to really support the less common locations of resettlement, but we're happy to be there. So I'm sure all of you are aware of some of the numbers that have changed over the last couple of years. The last administration was not so friendly to our clientele. And back when resettlement began in, I believe, the 50s and 40s, resettlement was peaking and hitting high numbers. And you had record highs of 220,000 individuals being resettled in the US. And in 2016, it was 95,000, which was admirable. I always think we can do better. There are countries like Switzerland and Finland and a lot of other larger countries or smaller countries that have resettled upwards of 1 million in a year. So I think we can handle it, but that's my personal opinion. So in 2018, we saw the drop to 45,000. We saw the drop in 2019, another 15,000. And then in 2020, it was 18,000. And this December, and as you can see, the numbers don't match because because the way the systems were so gutted and because of the way the programming was gutted, we were not able to really accommodate even 18,000. So we only could accommodate about 12,000 people, which is an abysmal number. The goal for 2021 was set to be 15,000 as the determination number. And I'm so happy, so happy that that is not the case. It has been lifted to 125,000. This is the first time I've given this presentation under the new administration. So it's really exciting to feel that sense of hope again and to know that we'll be able to do a lot more work for people. We don't think we'll be able to resettle 125,000 people, but we're going to get as close as we humanly can, going forward. So this is a little bit more just about Refugee Services of Texas specifically. and our numbers and our data. So this is more recent. So this year, or last year alone, we resettled almost 800 refugees, asylees, and SIVs. So a refugee is someone who has fled their country based on persecution and declared, asked for refugee status through a camp and then gets resettled. An asylum seeker, very similar, they declare asylum upon arrival in the country that they'd like to be resettled in. So instead of crossing a border, instead of, kind of being given a pass to cross the border, they show up at the border and say, please help me, I don't have another option. But they're really in the same boat as far as the persecution and why they're fleeing, so there's not much to be differentiated there. And then the SIVs are special immigrant visas, and those are typically from, I think we have mostly from Afghanistan, and they are individuals who supported the US during our time there and supported via like either translating or helping us in that realm. I don't know too much about how you acquire an SIV, but I'm learning. We've also supported 300 survivors of trafficking, both all types of trafficking. Fortunately, there's more than one type. But we support survivors of trafficking, and we supported 306 unaccompanied minors. So that means that we resettled 1/26 of refugees nationwide, which is exciting, even in a time that it wasn't looking so great and we were having a lot of struggles. But now we can kind of shift our mindset to thriving instead of just surviving, now that we have a little bit more room to breathe. So what we do is a lot of different things. The services we provide specifically are basic necessities. So that's getting families upon arrival, making sure they have an apartment to stay in, they have the food, they have clothing, they have relevant materials. So if they're a family coming from an Asian country, we want to make sure they have food and equipment that's familiar and makes sense and isn't just, a Western version of something. We have case management, so that is on call and like really personal support for the families and for individuals. We have employment services, which is really diverse. So that looks like job trainings, resume support, learning how to do trades. We have a lot of volunteers that will come in and kind of speak on their experience as a recruiter or their experience at their company, and how they're, how people can kind of get into positions there. And we see that working out really well. We get a lot of people into dignified spots, and that's really important to us, that people are working in jobs that honor their skills and honor their abilities. We also provide English language classes and a cultural orientation for those when they're arriving. We also, one of my favorite things that we do is our trauma-informed mental health services. Our counselor is an absolute angel. She does so much for our community, and I think it's so important to have these types of services when you're dealing with people who have experienced trauma, such as resettlement. We also provide immigration and legal assistance, which is truly essential and has been life-saving since 2016. So that's also really exciting to have. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about our programming specifically, just so you can learn about our clients and the types of people we work with, and the many different ways that we connect with others. So one of our programs is the Asylum Seeker Assistance Program, otherwise known as ASAP. And this is specifically for asylum seekers. It's run out of Austin. We're growing it to, I believe, Dallas and Houston just started theirs. But it is to provide essential services to asylum seekers and asylum clients through our partnerships via food, legal aid, medical care, health insurance, housing support. The person that runs this is an asylum seeker himself. Ahmed fled during the Arab Spring Revolution in Egypt in 2011. And I hope you get to meet him one day, but he is just a delight. He was one of the organizing leaders in that. So he had to flee, and he fled to Mexico. And then in Mexico, they thought he was related to cartel in some way. So then he had to flee Mexico. He wasn't. And now he ended up in the US. So he sought asylum not once, but twice. So he is truly the perfect person to run this program and to help support clients who are experiencing the same thing. So he's trilingual, English, Spanish, and his home language. So that's really, it's awesome to have him. We're so happy that we have this program because his caseload also filled up like that because we have the need for it. Another program we have is our Survivors of Trafficking Empowerment Program. So what that means is anyone who has been trafficked has access to this service, and that could look anything like labor trafficking, sex trafficking, a lot of different types. We have about an even split of male and female clients, which says a lot about the types of people that are being trafficked. So this provides them with emergency necessities. And in the case of survivors from STEP, it is a little bit more immediate services because people often are coming out of crisis, which means they don't have a lot, and that might just be the clothes on their body. So we want to get them set up as quickly as possible with housing, with healthcare, with employment, with especially legal and counseling services, employment assistance, and making sure that they are getting the emotional support, community support that they need. We also are running criminal justice advocacy programs on their behalf so that we partner with local law enforcement and community members to kind of protect our community in that way and find people where they don't want to be, where people might not want to be found. But it's really important that we honor our clients' experiences and support them. So STEP is really amazing. We have a volunteer coordinator directly connected to STEP and another one directly connected to resettlement because we do have such a large caseload. So people can volunteer individually with STEP, making care packages, delivering care packages. People can volunteer with resettlement in a lot of different capacities. And I can talk about that as well later on. So another aspect of our services is a legal and immigration team. We have team members in Austin and Dallas, and they provide free or low-cost legal aid, kind of on a sliding scale. And they work so hard, they work overtime, they work their butts off to get people the services they need. I don't know what we would do without them. So these are a couple of the services that they provide, whether that's temporary protected status, DACA referrals, consular processing, green card renewals, work authorizations, because not only is it difficult to understand the legal jargon as a citizen and as a native English speaker, but it's truly complicated when it's not your first language and not your home country. So it's really important that we have these services to make sure that everyone has access to the same type of aid. This is the other one I was going to talk about, is the community wellness program, and it offers counseling and support services at no cost to refugees, asylum seekers, trafficking survivors, and Cuban entrants. So Cuban entrants is part of another group of people that we serve specifically, but it's just, you know, another group of individuals. But they have access to our counseling services for the first 5 years of resettlement. We're working to grow that, so it's not cut off after 5 years, but right now our budget needs are, you know, we're still adjusting them and hoping to see a little bit more money as the years go on from the government and from other groups. So hopefully we'll have that going. We're hiring in Dallas and Austin and Houston. So if you know any rock stars counselors, we'll take them. We also focus on client-focused treatment and support services. So that's referrals for counseling, crisis intervention as well. And our counselor works really closely with our STEP team when it comes to the post-crisis care of our clients and helping them heal. So the last program I think I'll talk about is the Unaccompanied Children Program, and this is for families after children ages 0 to 17 have experienced family separation or have spent time in the child immigration detention centers. This is only in Houston currently, but we're hoping to grow this to Austin as well, as we're seeing a need for it. But it's just another program that specifically caters to the needs of children in this situation, because family separation is truly unacceptable, but people are going through it and experiencing it. So we need to be prepared for those survivors. Okay, this is just a little bit about refugees and some kind of myth busters. I feel that you don't have these you don't have these preconceived notions, but there are lots of people that believe that refugees are just here to take the social services and public services, which is simply not true. Refugees pay an average $21,000 more in taxes than they'll ever receive in public benefits, and they made up $20.9 billion of the US economy in 2015. So it's hard to say that they're here, grubbing off of resources. Refugees are here for a reason. They didn't really choose to be here, but they're here, and they are not someone to be kind of like ignored. So 84% have taken steps to become citizens by the time that they've been in the US, between 16 to 25 years. The citizenship process is very difficult, but so many have made the efforts to go through the process, so that is really commendable. And then 13% are entrepreneurs compared with the 9% of US-born residents, so we should be taking notes on that. I think it's really cool to see that there's so many refugee businesses. There's a partner that we have in Dallas. She's a refugee from Vietnam, and she just started a coffee company where she employs refugees and provides job training for refugees. So it's really beautiful to see the kind of the full circle effect of that as well. But we'd also love to see that effect with community members locally who are not also refugees. I'd like to share this video. This is about one of the people who worked with us at RST. His name's Mansoor, but it might just give a clear idea of what it's like to be a refugee. It's about 2 minutes long. Yay! Okay.
My name is Mansoor Purhan, and I have a special immigrant visa from Afghanistan. I moved here 4 years ago with my wife and 2 kids. Life in Afghanistan, unfortunately, it's very hard. Every morning when you go to work or you go to shopping, you're not sure if you're gonna be back home safe. My home was bombed like 2 times. My mom, when she heard like the noise from the airplane or coming toward us, she moved to a cave, and so we will be able to like hide. And when she came out and she saw the smoke and fire, and like everybody from that village was killed, and my mom had to walk like maybe 10 miles or 15 miles to find a safe place. Even as a child, I had a book on my knees to read. And I had a dream in my mind to follow. This education is the only way that I can move away from the situation. I was welcomed by RST, and they supported me at the beginning, and they welcomed me at the airport, and it was wonderful. My biggest struggle was getting to connect with the people. As a result of that, you're feeling like at the beginning you're feeling lonely, and that's a little bit hard. I'm serving refugees and SIVs at the beginning of their life in the United States. It's really amazing to help people. I have passion about this when you help someone and to achieve something. I'm very happy that I'm here right now, and I'm very glad, especially for my kids, that they don't have the same situation, the same experience that they had in the past, and they are having a bright future.
Thanks for letting me know about the audio. So that's Mansoor, and he is an absolute dream to work with, but it's really important to hear the many different sides of this story. His story is really beautiful, and I'm glad you get to hear it. And there's so many others that I think really just illuminate and bring light to why this is important and why it's important to have an interest and passion for those who are coming to the US, because, I'm sure in another life that living in his home country wouldn't have been so stressful for his family, and those experiences wouldn't have had to happen, but because they did, we need to be ready to support people in any situation. So it's just nice to hear his story. So what is the future of resettlement? This is the last thing I'll talk about a little bit, but the future of resettlement is now looking good. It's looking a lot better. We're feeling a lot more hopeful. There's already been some really stellar changes. So some executive orders for the stopping of the wall, which was painful to begin with. Orders for lifting the Muslim ban, which we've already seen happen. For reinstating DACA, which we've already seen happen. I believe those are the 3 main things that have happened already. But we are hoping for even more support in that realm. There's a lot to be done. We're still a lot of family reunification problems at the southern border. There's still a lot of space in our communities to support refugees, and we've been underutilized the last 4 years. So we hope that in the next couple months and years, we'll get to see some changes and some more accommodations, and we'll be hitting those 125,000 people welcomed into the U.S. by the end of a year. 150, 160, who knows? But yeah, I am happy to stay on, and we can, if you have questions, I can talk about volunteering opportunities, some cool events that we have coming up. That is the end, so thank you for listening. I can talk a little bit about volunteer opportunities if that interests people. Yeah, okay. So if you are interested in volunteering, you can just email me right here, and I can connect you with the right person, but it's a really easy process. You just do a background check. But the way volunteering looks right now in COVID, we are obviously COVID safe. We do not want to be putting anyone, oh yeah, we can close the share if that's easier. See everyone's face. Cool. That's nice. So yeah, so with volunteering right now with COVID safe precautions just being taken, a lot of things are virtual or kind of distanced, but normally when we have full capacity, we do welcome teams, which a lot of our faith groups like to do. You can get together with a group of people who are really interested, and you go through a training, and then you are the people that show up at the airport. You work on setting up the apartment, you work on setting up and kind of acquiring all those pieces, so bed frames, tables, chairs, dishes. You bring them, you go to the airport, you pick up the family, you say hi, you welcome them, and then you're kind of like their homie for the next couple months to help them in that process of, how does the bus work? How does this work? How do I get to the grocery store? Is there a grocery store that has this thing? How do I get my kids enrolled in school? So you kind of become a connection for them just in the community. It's a really awesome way just to develop relationships and make people feel welcomed right upon arrival. We also do a lot. Right now we have a baby shower registry, so we have a baby shower coordinator. So that's what we're working on too. Babies are still being born, so that's really exciting. So hosting refugee families like that. We have a sewing collective here in Austin that if you're into sewing or crafts like that, we have a couple women. It's really fun. They're doing it virtually, and they got everyone a sewing machine. So we have a bunch of translators for the 6 different countries represented in the group, and then we have the women themselves. So we've made it work, but it's a really fun little way to tune in and connect with people. Other ways people have been volunteering have doing a lot of drop-offs and pickups for people, dropping off groceries, picking up groceries. And we also have a mentoring program, which I think is really important and really beautiful, because especially right now when we have so little human connection, it's really important for our youth in our programs to have those guides and those mentors and those kind of like cultural ambassadors in a way. So our mentorship program is also really fun. And you can work specifically with STEP clients. You can work with resettlement clients. If you're a second language speaker, if you have a native language, we are always looking for support with like translations and interpretations. But yeah, there's just a lot of really cool people in really fun ways, and hanging out at RST is really fun. And I hope that this interests you in some way, but we also have a really fun event coming up. I think y'all are located kind of in East Austin, if I'm not wrong. I've driven by a couple of times. I'm also in East Austin. And right up this street at the Franklin location, we have an event for Amplify Austin, which is the Blue Starlight Theater. We're hosting a drive-in night. So socially distance, super safe. You'll stay in your cars, but we're gonna screen a film called Not My Life, and we are highlighting survivors of trafficking for that evening. So we'll have a couple speakers. One is a local speaker. He has volunteered. He's a survivor of labor trafficking. And then we have a woman in Nepal who is a survivor of trafficking as well. And she just finished her book, but she's a friend of one of the other development people, and she agreed to Zoom in. So we'll have her there. So it'll be a great conversation just around the local and global effects of trafficking, because it does affect 27 million people worldwide, which is 27 million people too many. So the more people that know about it, the better. But yeah, so it'll be a really fun experience just to kind of like learn about their time and learn about what they have to say, because we got to amplify and advocate for our communities. So yeah. Are there any questions, anything that y'all have to ask me? I know I talked a lot, so.
When is that event? And when is that event?
Oh, the event. It's March 4th. I can send the flyer to James and Terry and you can distribute it. It's going to be virtual and in person. So if you can't tune in, if you don't feel like coming in person, totally fine. You can hang out with us online. We're also doing a silent auction and virtual raffle. So there's some fun stuff in there too. If you're into skydiving, we got a skydiving pass, got a cool annual membership to like the Mexe Arte Museum downtown. So there's some fun things in there too, but all the proceeds obviously go to our programs and client services.
I was going to ask if there are particular things in measures of President Biden, boy, does that feel good to say,
I love your background.
has already taken through an executive order or has announced as part of the immigration policies that you think would be particularly helpful to your work and that citizens like us can be supporting.
The policies, right? So really any policy that's in favor of our clients. I'm excited about the new pathways to citizenship that are coming out. I do think it's an obscenely long process. And I think 11 years is way too long. So I'm happy to see shorter options being put out there. I'm also happy to see the investigations. We're happy to see the investigations into the border, the southern border, and what's going on there, because there has been a lot of abuse of human rights. So we are looking forward to really any policy that reflects that. We're looking forward to policy that's going to connect us better with our international community as well. We have been relatively isolated the last few years, and I think that's really kind of played out for our resettlement. People don't want to be resettled here, or they're a little bit more fearful of being resettled here. We had a client we had a client in 2015 who essentially shared with us, she was featured in one of the books, in a book written about resettlement, and she shared that in the process of resettlement, as soon as they found out they were being resettled to the US, it was right at the time of the Muslim ban, and the feeling of excitement completely went away. After 10 years in a camp, the whole feeling of joy and being able to get out was just kind of crushed. So rebuilding our international connections is really important right now to make it clear that that's no longer the standard, and that will never be the standard again.
President Biden also gets to set the number of refugees that are admitted.
Yes, he set it to 125,000 this year. So that is very exciting. We're not sure if we'll see 125,000 faces, but the idea is to build the capacity back up, because after it's kind of been choked out from a river to a stream, it's going to take probably 8 to 12 months to see that kind of fill back up. But we're hoping by 2022, we'll be hitting that number and higher.
Elena, let me just real quickly suggest if you would put your website URL in the chat and your email, at least to me, so I can do some follow-up.
Yeah,
We'll be posting the video of this session, which is open to anybody.
I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll put my email's everywhere, so it's okay.
Okay.
My email's in there too as well. If you're interested in volunteering, if you want to learn more about the events that we do, if you have any cool ideas, we're always welcome. Our community members are kind of why RST works so well. The Sewing Collective was someone's idea. A volunteer was like, hey, I like to sew, make really beautiful quilts. She does. And she was like, I'd love to like teach people, because that is, or, you know, how do I provide the services so that other people can sew? Because that is such like a cultural piece of it. So if you have ideas, like we'll play with really anything until we can make it work. Just we want as many ways for our clients to connect with the community here in Austin. Yeah.
Is your organization involved at all with the separated children who have not been reunited with their families?
Yeah, so our office in RGV in Rio Grande Valley has been pretty connected with that. That's also where we work with our what's it called, immigration team a lot, and that's where the Unaccompanied Children's Program works in Houston. There's a direct pipeline kind of from the border towns to Houston, so that's where a lot of the children will end up, and that's where we come in and we support them in that, and we support them with services and getting them reunited with their families. But right, it's just, I mean, we still have like 600 kids at the border who don't have their parents. So we're not happy about that, but we're trying our best to get those connected. But it's been hard. But we're hoping to see an improvement there. Our RGV office works probably the hardest, I think, out of everyone just because of their proximity.
Great. I guess, yeah, thank you so much, Elena. I guess one question was you'd sort of mentioned emailing you if we want to volunteer individually.
Yeah.
You'd also mentioned that different faith communities get
Oh, yeah.
involved and sort of form teams. And I'm just wondering what that looks like and how that.
Oh, yeah. If a faith group wants to kind of volunteer as a unit, that is totally cool. I would connect you with Lynn or Angela, who are the volunteer coordinators, and they'd be able to kind of get you on a roster of when the next welcome team would be needed. And you would go through the trainings for that as a unit. And then once that time comes, you'd be hitting the ground and running. So it's pretty easy, if that sounds like something you'd want to do.
I guess I just wanted to say that, you know, one of the things that upset me the most about the Trump administration was how close he got to gutting our robust refugee resettlement program around the country. I don't know that the refugee resettlement program could have lasted another 4 years. So it's one of the things I'm so grateful about this election is that because a lot of agencies closed right all over the country. And,
I know. It was so hard.
It's not like you can just snap your fingers and start that stuff back up again. So I'm really for that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That does connect really heavily to like the way we can support, because it is going to unfortunately take us, as much as we want to open our arms up immediately, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the resources because so much funding has been cut. It'll take a little while for that to kind of trickle down and get to RST. Not too long, but it might take a little time until we have that financial backing again to really support all these clients, because we have so much need. But yeah, we felt that, and it was horrible to see those agencies shut down. But we're happy. I'm happy we're still here, and I'm happy that now it's not so scary.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, another quick question. I was just reading this morning about how the housing prices in Austin are continuing to get more and more crazy. I'm just wondering how that sort of intersects with your work.
Yeah, of course. Housing. Yeah, I saw an article that was saying that Austin is like set to be like the #1 place to buy a house next year, which is not great if you live here. Or if you have a tight budget. So yeah, so we have some relationships we get a lot of housing at a discounted rate for a locked period of time. There are some really generous and really kind landlords in our area who will allow us to kind of use 5 or 6 apartments and give us a discounted rate on that. So that way we can also put communities near each other. We have a really big Burmese community, and it's not fair really to put someone in North Austin, someone in South Austin, someone deep East MLK. Like, we want them to be able to have a chance at communicating and about having some sort of community from your home here. So it's really nice to have those partners, but yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle when it comes to getting them. But we are lucky to have some really, really generous landlords that will support us like that. But yeah, something else that I think is interesting is that refugees actually have to pay back all the money that they get from the government in the process of resettling, including the plane ticket. After a certain point, they're expected to pay the bill of their plane ticket. They're expected to pay the bill of their transport services. I know. It's like it's absolutely infuriating. So it's really, yeah, so anything we can do financially to support our communities is really important. Unfortunately, like money talks the most, but it's insane to ask families who have been here for 6 months to pay back a plane ticket when they can't even get a work visa yet. So, you know, kind of an uphill battle with that as well.
I wonder if an organization like Community Foundations is somebody that you'd work with because of their massive number of support services and
Yeah. Yeah, we have a ton of RST is like very connected. We work with community foundations, we work with United Way, we work with Casa Marianella, we work with a ton of community orgs that feel natural to us. So the Multicultural Refugee Coalition, we're part of the Refugee Roundtable here in Austin, which is a network of about 9 different resettlement type agencies or related agencies. So things like Girl Forward, groups like IACT, which is the Interfaith Community Network. Yeah. So it's a collection of us who kind of all come together and like, hey, saw this resource. There's someone from Austin Independent School District, which is on the board, which is super helpful, especially with this pandemic and virtual learning. It's been really good to have her input on how we can support our clients at home. Tech has been a really huge need. She communicated that really clearly, that because families, don't come with a computer, they don't come with a laptop, that families need individual computers and phones so they can apply for jobs, they can do trainings online, they can do education online. They don't get cut off from society. So, but yeah, we get really connected. We have a ton of relationships with our community partners. And that's really like that's our bread and butter, is finding those partners in our community just to like really amp up and like cushion the sides of our clients. Because without that, we would be, oh my God, I don't even know. It'd be really hard.
Elena, the sound coming from you is coming in and out, at least the way I'm experiencing it. I don't know if there's something you can adjust there that would help with that. I also just had a quick question. I'm just curious what you might know about if there are going to be any changes with regard to Syrian refugees in particular.
Yeah, with Syrian refugees, we're looking for improvement, honestly, and their validating process. A lot of them would be considered for SIVs, but I saw the footage of it recently, but in Syria, or in the camps right now that are hosting Syrian clients, are being overwhelmed. And it's been really frustrating to kind of watch that happen from afar. But we're hoping to be able to bring a little bit more clarity and support that now that the US is a little bit more open to that kind of relationship. So hopefully we'll be seeing an influx of Syrian clients because, yeah, if there's no reason for them not to also be resettled. And it's just an absolute crisis of what's happening at this point. So kind of a, what's it called? Abuse of human rights.
It's been excruciating to watch that over the last 4 years. Their country absolutely demolished, and our callous attitude. I've been grateful to spend some time in Canada, where Canada has been resettling them, what you said a while ago speaks worlds about refugees now being afraid to come to the United States.
Yeah, we don't want that to be the standard. We don't want people to feel unsafe after they felt unsafe for so long. It's just not right. So I think it's kind of people like us and people like y'all who make it easier, make it seem like it's an option again, by just being welcoming and being those open arms and those friendly faces and not holding those preconceived notions about them is really important. So I appreciate the work that y'all do too.
Hi, Elena, thanks for your presentation. I had a question. I was wondering what makes a country a potential resettlement destination? Is it, I guess it's a matter of communicating with the UNHCR, but
yeah, I think that is left up more to like the United Nations and then their determination of what makes a country eligible for resettlement. I really don't know the process on that. I don't know what makes someone qualified or not qualified. Sometimes I'm surprised that the US is still qualified after what's been happening, but I am glad that it wasn't completely discontinued. From what I do know about the process, my guess is that it would be based on the economic stability, the political stability, and kind of like the perception of living in the US, and also like looking at the UN and looking at their documents on how the US treats refugees and looking at police brutality. And they look at a lot of data that comes from the US and kind of use that to determine, is this country a safe place for our clients?
Okay,
so they do a full analysis as well, but I do not know how often or how recent they are.
Oh, and then I was also wondering, do a lot of these camps have an employee of the UNHCR?
Yes, so the camps are organized in a really interesting way. They have UNHCR, they have UN military, and they also have local organizers. A lot of camp members and camp community members, because they've been there for 10, 26, 30 years, they know a lot. Unfortunately, they know a lot about the camps. So they become leadership roles there as well. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of issues also with camps. So in the sense of like, you shouldn't be putting the members of the community in those leadership positions when they should be getting resettled and they should be getting taken care of and not kept around to help run the camp, which is a huge problem that I've noticed and I don't like. But yeah, the camps have a variety of employees from different sources.
Thanks.
Well, we should probably, I guess, in another minute or so, maybe taking a little break before we start a meeting for worship at 11, which is just on the same link here. Yeah, if you had any last questions or last thoughts that you'd like to share with us, Elena.
I don't really, but just thank you so much for giving me the time to talk to y'all. It was really nice. And I'm so happy to see friendly faces who are supportive of our community. So I hope I get to see you all in person sometime. That'd be nice. So thank you so much. And I hope that you have a really good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. It's really been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. And I will send along the information for the flyer as well to y'all, so then you can share that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, and Terry, we can probably stop recording at this point too. Thank you. Cool. All right. Yeah, that'll be great. We'll put it in our bulletin and everything. So